The grand hall of Blackthorn Castle had never looked so beautiful. Tall white candles lined the stone walls, and silver ribbons hung from the high wooden beams. Hundreds of pack members sat in neat rows, dressed in their finest clothes, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Tonight, King Alaric Thorn, the alpha of the Blackthorn pack, would marry Lady Seraphina Voss, and the two most powerful packs in the region would finally become one family. Alaric stood at the altar in a black formal coat, his back straight and his face calm. He was known across the land as a strong and fearless leader, a man who never showed fear or doubt. Yet tonight, something felt strange. His wolf, the powerful animal spirit that lived inside him, had been unusually quiet all day. It was almost as if the wolf were waiting for something. The doors at the end of the hall opened, and Lady Seraphina walked in, wearing a long silver gown. She was graceful and elegant, the daughter of a rival pack leader. Her father walked beside her, smiling proudly. This marriage was not built on love. It was built on peace. For many years, the Thorn and Voss packs had fought over land and power. This wedding was meant to end the fighting forever. Alaric watched Seraphina approach, and he told himself this was the right thing to do. He was the king. His feelings did not matter as much as the safety of his people. He had accepted this duty a long time ago, and he intended to keep his word. The priestess, an old woman named Mother Wren, stood between them and began the sacred binding chant. Her voice was soft but steady, filling the quiet hall. Alaric closed his eyes and tried to focus on the words, but a strange pressure began to build inside his chest. His wolf, silent all day, suddenly stirred. At first, it was only a small feeling, like a whisper. Then it grew stronger, like a fire spreading through his veins. Alaric's hands began to shake. He had felt his wolf react before, during battles or moments of danger, but never like this. The wolf was not afraid, it was desperate. Mother Wren continued the chant, unaware of the storm building inside the king. Seraphina reached for Alaric's hand, ready for the final part of the ceremony, but before their fingers touched, Alaric flinched. A low growl rumbled in his throat, so quiet that only those closest to him could hear it. The doors at the side of the hall opened again. A young servant girl named Elena Ashford stepped inside, carrying a small basket of ceremonial herbs needed for the final part of the ritual. She was told to deliver them quickly and quietly, then leave without being noticed. Elena had worked in the castle kitchens for 2 years, and she knew her place. She kept her eyes down and walked carefully along the side of the hall, hoping no one would look her way. But the moment she entered the hall, a soft scent drifted through the air, carried gently by the evening breeze. It smelled like wild flowers after rain, fresh and pure. To anyone else, it was simply the smell of herbs and garden air, but to Alaric, it was something entirely different. His wolf exploded with energy the instant the scent reached him. It was as if a fire had been lit inside his chest. His vision sharpened, his heartbeat pounded, and every instinct in his body screamed one word: mate. He had never felt anything like it before. He had always believed the old stories about fated mates were nothing more than legends told to comfort young wolves, but now, standing at his own wedding altar, he understood. The stories were true. Alaric's control slipped for just a moment. His eyes flashed gold, a sign that his wolf was rising close to the surface. Several pack members near the front gasped, sensing the sudden shift in his energy. Seraphina, still holding his hand, looked at him with confusion. "Alaric?" she whispered. "What is wrong?" He did not answer. His body moved before his mind could stop it. He turned away from Seraphina and looked across the hall, searching for the source of the scent that had awakened his wolf. His eyes found Elena, standing near the side wall, frozen in shock, the basket of herbs still in her hands. The hall fell into stunned silence. Everyone watched as their king stepped away from his bride and walked toward a servant girl. Alaric's steps were steady but urgent, each one pulling him closer to the truth his wolf had already accepted. Elena took a small step back, unsure of what was happening or why the most powerful man in the kingdom was walking straight toward her. When Alaric reached her, he gently took her wrist, careful not to hurt her, and breathed in slowly. The scent was even stronger this close, and his wolf let out an inner howl of relief and joy. There was no more doubt. This woman was his mate, chosen not by politics or duty, but by fate itself. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. "Your Majesty," she said quietly, her voice trembling, "I do not understand. Have I done something wrong?" Alaric shook his head slowly. "No," he said, his voice rough with emotion he had never felt before. "You have done nothing wrong. You are—" He paused, searching for the right words in front of hundreds of watching eyes. "You are my mate." Gasps spread through the hall like wildfire. Serafina's face turned pale, then red with anger and embarrassment. Her father rose from his seat, his hand moving toward the sword at his side. "This is an insult," he shouted. "You dishonor my daughter in front of everyone." Alaric turned to face them, still holding Elena's hand, as if letting go would break something precious. "I do not do this to insult anyone," he said firmly. "My wolf has chosen. I cannot fight what nature has decided. If I continue this ceremony, while ignoring my true mate, both my wolf and I will suffer a slow and painful decline. I would fail my people far more by breaking that bond than by breaking this agreement." Serafina stood frozen for a moment, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. She had never loved Alaric, but she had accepted this marriage with pride, believing it would bring honor to her family. Now, in front of everyone, she was being replaced by a servant girl. "You will regret this," she said quietly, her voice shaking with anger. Then she turned and walked out of the hall, her father and warriors following close behind her, their expressions dark with fury. The remaining guests whispered nervously among themselves. Mother Wren, the priestess, stepped forward and raised her hands, asking for calm. "The mate bond is sacred," she announced to the hall. "No king, no law, and no agreement can stand against it. What has happened here tonight is beyond anyone's control." Still, the pack elders were worried. Breaking the marriage agreement meant breaking peace with the Voss pack, and that could mean war. Alaric knew this too, but he also knew he could not fight against something as powerful as a true mate bond. His wolf would never allow it, and deep down, some quiet part of his own heart did not want to either. Later that night, after the hall had emptied and the guests had gone home confused and worried, Alaric found Elena sitting alone in the castle's quiet garden. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light over the flowers and stone paths. Elena sat on a bench near a small fountain, her hands folded tightly in her lap, still trying to understand everything that had happened. Alaric approached slowly, giving her space, and sat down beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the gentle trickle of water from the fountain. "I am sorry," Alaric finally said. "I know this must be frightening for you. One moment you were delivering herbs for a wedding, and the next, your whole life changed." Elena let out a small, nervous laugh. "I always felt like people watched me strangely," she admitted. "Some of the older wolves in the kitchen would stare at me sometimes, then quickly look away. I thought I was imagining it." "They probably sensed something even before I did," Alaric said. "A mate's presence can feel different to other wolves, even if they do not fully understand why." Elena looked down at her hands. "I am just a servant, Your Majesty. I have no title, no family name that means anything. I do not know how to be what you need me to be." Alaric turned to face her fully. "You do not need to be anything other than yourself," he said gently. "Titles and names are given by people. This bond was given by something greater. My wolf did not choose you because of your birth or your position. It chose you because your soul matches mine." Elena's eyes filled with tears, though she was not entirely sure if they were tears of fear or relief. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "The Voss pack will not simply accept this. There could be war because of me." Alaric took her hand gently, the same way he had in the hall, but this time slower, softer. "There may be difficult days ahead," he admitted honestly. "I will not lie to you about that, but I promise you this. I will protect my people, and I will protect you. We will face whatever comes together." For the first time since entering the hall that evening, Elena felt a small sense of peace settle over her. She did not fully understand the world of pacts, politics, and ancient bonds, but she understood the sincerity in Alaric's voice. It was not the voice of a king making promises for show. It was the voice of a man who meant every word. They sat together in the moonlight for a long while, slowly getting to know one another, not as a king and a servant, but as two people connected by something neither of them had asked for, yet neither of them wanted to lose. Elena spoke of her childhood in a small village before she came to work at the castle. Alaric spoke of the heavy weight of leadership he had carried since he was young, and how tired he had grown of duty without warmth. As the night grew late, a soft breeze moved through the garden, carrying Elena's scent once more to Alaric's senses. This time, instead of shock or chaos, it brought calm. His wolf settled peacefully for the first time in years, content simply to be near her. Somewhere beyond the castle walls, tension was growing. Word of the broken wedding would spread quickly, and the Voss pack would not stay silent for long. Old rivalries, once buried beneath fragile peace, were beginning to stir again, but within the quiet garden, none of that mattered yet. Alaric looked up at the bright moon above them, then back at Elena, whose eyes reflected its silver light. "Fate is strange," he said softly. "It does not care about plans or politics. It simply chooses, and we are left to find the courage to follow it." Elena smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Then I suppose we will have to find that courage together." Alaric nodded, feeling something in his chest settle into place for the very first time in his life. Whatever challenges waited beyond the castle walls, whatever anger the Voss pack carried, and whatever uncertain future lay ahead, he knew one truth clearly now: he would face it all, not as a king bound only by duty, but as a man finally guided by his heart. And under the quiet light of the moon, with the sound of the fountain whispering nearby, two unlikely souls sat side by side, ready to begin a story that fate itself had written long before either of them understood it. The next morning, the castle woke to a different kind of tension. Servants whispered in the hallways, and guards stood a little straighter at their posts, unsure of what the day would bring. News of the broken wedding had spread through every corner of Blackthorn Castle by sunrise, and many wondered how their king would handle the storm he had created. Alaric called his council together in the early hours, before most of the pack had even finished breakfast. His most trusted advisors sat around a long wooden table, their faces serious. "The Voss pack will demand answers," one advisor said, folding his arms. "They may even prepare for conflict." "I know," Alaric replied calmly. "I will send a formal message to Lord Voss today, offering a peaceful path forward. I do not wish for war. I never did." "And the girl?" another advisor asked carefully. "She has no pack training, no knowledge of politics. Can she truly stand beside you?" "She will learn, just as any of us once had to learn," Alaric said. "Blood and birth do not decide a person's worth. My wolf chose her, for reasons far deeper than titles." The council fell silent, respecting their king's decision, even if some still carried doubts. Meanwhile, Elena spent the morning in a small guest room within the castle, a place far grander than the servants' quarters she was used to. She thought about her parents, simple villagers who had passed away when she was young, and wondered what they would think if they could see her now. Later that afternoon, Alaric found her walking along the castle walls, looking out over the green hills beyond. He joined her quietly, matching her slow pace. "I spoke with my council this morning," he said. "I sent a message to Lord Voss, hoping to avoid conflict. It may take time before we know his answer." "Do you think he will accept peace?" Elena asked. "I do not know," Alaric admitted, "but I believe it is worth trying. Too many wolves have died over old arguments between our packs. I would rather find another way." Elena nodded, appreciating his honesty. "And what about me? What am I supposed to do while all of this happens around me?" Alaric stopped walking and turned to face her. "You do not have to do anything you are not ready for. I will not force titles or duties upon you before you are prepared. For now, simply allow yourself time to understand this new life, at whatever pace feels right to you." His patience surprised her. She had expected a king, especially one so powerful, to demand quick answers and fast decisions. Instead, he offered her space, something she had not realized she needed until that very moment. Over the following days, Elena began to learn more about pack life, guided gently by Mother Wren. Slowly, whispers of doubt among the pack began to soften, as more wolves saw a woman who listened carefully and treated everyone with quiet kindness. One evening, nearly a week after the incident in the Grand Hall, a messenger arrived from the Voss pack. The entire castle held its breath as the messenger was led into the throne room, where Alaric waited with Elena by his side. The messenger bowed and delivered Lord Voss's response. Though anger still lingered in his words, Lord Voss agreed to a meeting between the two packs to discuss the future, rather than immediately declaring conflict. It was not a full peace, but it was a beginning, a small window of hope in a tense situation. Alaric let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "This is good news," he said quietly to Elena. "It means there is still a chance to avoid bloodshed." Elena squeezed his hand gently. "Then we will face that meeting together, just as you promised." As the days passed, the bond between Alaric and Elena continued to grow stronger, built not on sudden passion alone, but on patience, honesty, and quiet moments shared between two people learning to trust one another. On the night before the meeting with the Voss pack, Alaric and Elena stood once again in the quiet garden where their bond had first begun to settle into something real. The same fountain trickled softly nearby, and the same moon shone above them, though everything else felt different now. "Are you afraid?" Elena asked, looking up at him. "A little," Alaric admitted, "but not for myself. I worry about what conflict could mean for everyone I am responsible for." "We will find a way through it," Elena said softly. "You once told me fate does not care about plans, only about choices. Maybe this is simply another choice we must make together." Alaric looked at her for a long moment, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his wolf's instincts and everything to do with the woman standing beside him. "Together," he repeated quietly, as if testing the strength of the word. "Together," Elena confirmed, and as the moonlight settled peacefully over the garden once more, both of them understood that whatever the future held, whether peace or hardship, they would face it side by side, bound not only by fate, but by a choice they were now making with open eyes and steady hearts.